race play. All right, let's welcome in our good friend Scott Reynolds from the Pewter Report. What's up, Scotty? How are you?
Good. Just munching on a protein bar, waiting for you.
Attaboy. You didn't want to go to Pittsburgh and Permani Brothers and have a sandwich that's bigger than your face?
Yeah.
Been there,
it's raining there today, so.
Is it?
I prefer Florida. Yeah, it is.
How's it going to practice? Did they even get out?
Supposed to start, I think, within the hour, but it's raining. They're practicing at Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh, and then tomorrow they'll be practicing at the stadium with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So we have Adam Slovan and Matt Matera up there covering all the action for Pewter Report. So we'll have a Bucks Camp insider story on pewterreport.com today, and they'll be doing a podcast at 4:00 live.
Nice. I will be listening. Yeah, I will be listening for sure. Absolutely. And Sly's going to join us on the show tomorrow. So thank you.
There we go.
And thank you for all your coverage and traveling with the team. That's big time. You guys are big time.
Yeah.
We love that. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you
for joining us.
It was more fun last year in Jacksonville, I think. We drove up to Jacksonville, rented a house for a week, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We had some shenanigans in addition to our coverage.
Was there shenanigans?
We had some shenanigans, yeah.
Jacksonville used to be a really kind of fun place. Do you remember the old Jack's Landing when they had Hooters there? That was the play. We
went to Amelia Island. We went to Amelia Island.
There you go.
We went to a cigar bar out there, and they've got a really cool like downtown area. My mother-in-law lives in Amelia Island, so there's really not much to do in Jacksonville. It's not a very fun town.
But Amelia Island is the spot. I love it.
It's very
there.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, very cool.
Smart. Jack's Beach is pretty cool.
Hidden gem up there in along the coast in Jacksonville.
I know you're not a golfer, but they have some great golfers.
I am in my head. Yeah. In my head, I am a golfer, but my body doesn't cooperate.
So what you're saying is when the trips are good and you know where to go, you go. And when it's Pittsburgh in the summer, you're like, I'm good. Go ahead, Sly. Right. Go ahead,
exactly.
Maddie.
Yep.
And this is what you get. A rain-filled day.
Is what I'm doing, JP. I'm pulling rank. So, yeah.
We have those who can do, as I like to remind people on Twitter all the time. Those who can do. And that's exactly what you did. Well played. All right. So I'm sure you read the article from Dan Pompei yesterday in The Athletic. I thought it was a really good job by Jason.
Yeah, very much so.
I think I know what jumped out at you, but I'll just give you the floor. What did you learn? I don't know if we learned anything, but it was very maybe a little bit more clear about Devin White. That
was the standout moment for me. I mean, I know a lot of Jason's background and history. You know, I had beers with him at the press box. We've talked football before. Like I knew all of that, his backstory. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting because he has become so hyper-focused on character and team. And I think that marries so well with Todd Bowles' philosophy. Todd Bowles doesn't want drama. He doesn't want, outlandish, characters. He wants a team that rows in the boat in the same direction and plays football. Like Todd's a funny guy, but he's also a very serious guy. He's serious about football. He wants guys that are serious about football. And he loved Devin White. There's no doubt about it. I think if Todd had his druthers, let me say this. Todd's Achilles heel is that he gets drunk on some players. And I don't mean with alcohol because Todd doesn't drink. He drinks milk and he eats cookies. And that's a fact. And I'm not demeaning Todd, but he'll get drunk on some milk on some certain players. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka was one. That was the chess piece that he envisioned. And much like me with golf, like I'm better in my head than I am in real life. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka in Todd's head is better than he was on the field. And the same thing with Devin White. He loved Devin as a player, never really wanted to give up on him, even though Devin was giving up on the team by being egocentric and being all about him.
Right.
And I think that's why Jason Light and Todd Bowles work really well together because, at the end of the day, this is Jason Light's team. He hired Todd, right? And he's the general manager. And, when certain players are playing too much and their contracts are up, the general manager says, we're not re-signing these guys. Sorry. Then I think that's kind of putting your foot down a little bit. And I credit Jason, and the reason why, even like in the dark years during that decade of darkness where Jason Light came in 2014, kind of like in the middle of it, they didn't win until 2020. The reason why I was willing to give Jason Light the benefit of the doubt, stick up for him, is because I kind of understood the reasoning. Like I could see the vision and the plan. Sometimes plans don't take hold, like what the Washington Commanders did last year with new owner, new head coach, new quarterback. They came in, they stormed the league, and that happens every once in a while, but that's rare. Not typically, it's rare. That's not the typical results that you're going to get. It's a process. You have to build this thing. If you build it, they will come. Tom Brady came because he built a Super Bowl ready offensive line with Super Bowl ready talent at wide receiver. And they had a very good defense under Todd Bowles. But it's taken Jason a while to kind of understand that, players like Devin White, they're just not worth it. The talent isn't worth it because the effort is always not going to be there. It's about the player, not the team. And I think he's grown a lot since then. And again, circling back to my original point, what I really respect the most about Jason Light is his willingness to cut bait. Yeah. Right. He'll try a player.
Admit a mistake. Yeah.
Admit a mistake and move on. We saw that with a lot of players in 2014. Michael Johnson, Josh McCown, Anthony Collins. We saw that with Chris Baker, who was a free agent bust here in Tampa, the defensive tackle, who was a bit of a turd, if you ask me. Yeah. And then he was a turd.
More than a bit. Yeah, more than a bit. Yeah.
Wasn't very liked in the locker room, and just his play was subpar in the field. And then you had more recently, when you trade up in the second round for a kicker, Roberto Aguayo, right? And and there were some general managers that would hang on to that mistake, just out of ego, didn't want to admit it. And it's like, that was a bad move. That 2016 draft was awful, right? But he's learned from that, and he moved on from the kicker he traded up in the second round for. That's to be commended. I think that's why the Blazers have said, we don't expect perfection from you, but by God, man, don't compound a mistake by hanging on to it. And he's shown
so
that
many general managers do that.
Oh, Rich McKay did that. Rich McKay did that. I mean, Eric Curry. Eric Curry couldn't play from day one. I mean, Warren Sapp shows up in 95, during the OTAs, whatever they called the mini camp, in the off season back then. And he's like, who's this lazy bum? Like, he's a starter. what do you Sapp hadn't even been in Tampa long enough to sign his apartment lease yet, but he knew that Eric Curry couldn't play, but yet Rich McKay held on to that guy for all 5 years of his contract, even when he was a backup, because he didn't want to admit a mistake. And I think that's what's refreshing about Jason Light is they churn this roster. They find players that can play. They keep them. And the ones that can't, they move on. And then it's just back to the grind with Mike Beal and Rob McCartney and that personnel and that scouting staff trying to find guys that can play.
Scott Reynolds joining us here from the Pewter Report. What do you expect Saturday night in terms of starters playing? I know Todd's been a little evasive about that, but what do you sense?
A couple things, right? A lot of it's going to depend on how much work they get done, and quite frankly, how good they look on Thursday in the joint practice session. Because nobody wants to kind of if they play well on Thursday to get a lot of good work in, then it can be a situation where the starters just don't play a whole bunch, right? And then Todd can sit there and say, hey, we found a lot of answers in the joint practice with the Steelers. However, if they don't look good, then you might see, instead of a series or two, you might see a whole quarter, right? And I do think that they don't want to play the starters against the Buffalo Bills because they'll play Buffalo later in the season. Right. But I will say this, Saturday, it's supposed to be nice. It's supposed to be 88 degrees, not at kickoff, but that's the high, the low of 65. Boy, maybe I should have gone to Pittsburgh. Those temperatures. But Saturday night, sunny, no chance for rain, unlike Tampa. So weather's not going to be a factor. I was going to say, if weather was going to be a factor, then you don't play guys more than a quarter or two because you don't want a wet field where you can slip. But we already saw 2 groin injuries. That's a very prevalent injury when you have a wet field is, you step into the ground, your foot slides, you stretch that groin. We saw that with Rashad White. We also saw that with Dennis Houston, who was actually having kind of like an under the radar good training
really
camp. Yeah. And so, I'm of the opinion that since it's sunny, they get a lot of work, good work in on Thursday, maybe a series or two, maybe a quarter. We'll see. I don't think it's going to be anything more than a quarter, though, because this is a defense with the starters that knows the system and knows the scheme. So there's really not much to learn. Same with the offense. This is a carryover from last year to a degree with some new terminology here and there, some new plays here and there. But by and large, it's, we know what we have, and we have really good starters on offense and defense. And then it's just going to be, trying to find who the 12 or 13 new Buccaneers are going to be this year. Like, that's really what it is. If you're a good team, you're trying to build a 53-man roster. 40 of those guys right now, maybe 42, 43. You're basically trying to find who are the 12 guys on the back end of the roster, the depth pieces, the special teamers. If you're a team like the Titans, when they came in here, new head coach, new quarterback, not very good team, right? They had the number 1 overall pick. You might know who 20 of your guys out of the 53 are, right?
Right.
So there's a lot more work that needs to be done in the preseason if you're the Tennessee Titans, because you might think 20 guys can play, but you sucked so bad last year, you got to really churn that roster and get some new players in there because the ones from last year sucked. And so that's the difference between a team like Tampa Bay and a team like Tennessee. The Bucs are really only going through training camp and the preseason from a roster construction standpoint to try to find like a dozen guys.
Scott Reynolds joining us here. Scotty, I listen to all your podcasts. I'm a big fan of the Peter Report,
Appreciate
as you know. You and I rarely disagree, but I think we may have a spot of contention, and that is who is the backup quarterback? Who is the back? I think we probably agree in the long run, but so I heard you say that Trask is the guy.
Yep.
And I kind of feel like Trask is not the guy, and that's why they brought in Teddy Bridgewater. They also needed some depth. Obviously, they had to waive Michael Pratt. But I also think Teddy's here for more than just being a third guy on the practice squad. And I don't think that they trust Kyle Trask. And I think he played better. And I think part of the reason they brought him in is to light a fire under his ass. And I think he was a little bit more decisive on Saturday night, which is, I think, one of his big drawbacks. He needs to be quicker in his decision-making. But I think in the long run, by maybe week 3 or week 4, Teddy gets his legs underneath him. He's still a little rusty in his throwing. We saw that the other day. Mm-hmm. But I think when he gets his legs, I still don't think that they trust Trask, and in the end that they'll turn it over to Teddy if they have to. Well, where do we differ here?
From a timing standpoint, right? Timing is everything, as they say, right? Yeah. So at the start of the season, Teddy Bridgewater will be on the practice squad.
I agree. I agree with that.
And the reason for that is if he's on the Bucs 53-man roster, and this is the same reason why you're going to see Sterling Shepard on the practice squad to start the season, even though he could be called up like he was last year. If you're a vested veteran, which means I want to say it's either 8 or 10 years, something like that, if you've had a lot of time in the league, that your salary, your base salary for that season is fully guaranteed, whether you play or not. If you're on the 53-man roster for week 1, that's just a league-wide NFL rule. So for guys like Bridgewater and Sterling Shepard, they're going to start on the practice squad because, anything can happen, and you don't want to have, even if it's like $1 million, you don't want that guaranteed. You don't mind paying it if you need to throughout the season, but that's part and parcel to what I'm talking about. So the other thing too is Teddy Bridgewater may get some work, may get some snaps in the game on Saturday night against Pittsburgh Steelers, but he might not know all of the plays. Like when I was out there at practice on Monday, he threw one pass that was like 10 yards. The only other passes he threw were screen passes. He just doesn't know the offense yet.
Right.
And so if you're the Buccaneers, if you're the Buccaneers and let's say hypothetically, because you wouldn't have Teddy Bridgewater on the roster in week 1. So let's say in week 2 against Houston, let's say Baker kind of pulls a hammy a little bit in week 1. He starts in week 2. And because of that, you want to elevate Teddy Bridgewater from the practice squad to the active roster for week 2, just as a backup.
Right.
That seems logical and plausible.
Yep.
He would not go in the game if Baker Mayfield said, that hammies bother me. I gotta come out. Kyle Trask would be the guy, because Teddy Bridgewater just doesn't have the understanding of the whole playbook, doesn't have the chemistry with these receivers, tight ends, and backs. He just doesn't. The reason where you might see Teddy Bridgewater come to the active roster as a number 3 quarterback and be in play to go in the game instead of Kyle Trask would be later in the season. I think by mid-season, he might have a full grasp of this playbook. He's a smart guy. Right. But at the same time, you can't go out there as a quarterback. I don't care how much experience you have, and call a play that you're not familiar with, and you think the receiver is going to be here and the receiver is actually there, and you throw the ball right to a defensive back and it's a pick 6, because then you lose the game. So you can't do that. So even though Teddy Bridgewater has more experience, more wins under his belt, a lot of good things about Teddy, Kyle Trask is still the right backup quarterback for this team right now.
For now. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Mid-season.
I figure we did agree.
Yeah. Towards the end of the season, especially if it's not going to be a game where Baker misses, if it's a stretch of games, then you're going to see Teddy brought up to the active roster, and then they have some options. The other thing too is let's not forget, Kyle Trask has played well. 3 touchdowns, 1 interception in the preseason last year. Thought he played really good. He made some great throws on Saturday night, and more importantly, didn't make any mistakes. There weren't any turnover-worthy plays that I saw. But the thing is, JP, when you look at this backup quarterback situation, you're 2 plays away from disaster if you don't have Teddy Bridgewater. Right?
That's right.
If you had Michael Pratt, if you had Connor Bazelak as number 3, your season is over. And just ask the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah.
Okay. They were in the NFC Championship game, and they lost their 3rd-string quarterback that year. 3rd string was Brock Purdy. Right? They had Jimmy Garoppolo. They had Trey Lance. They were in their 3rd-string quarterback. He goes out in that game, and all of a sudden, Eagles automatically go to the Super Bowl because Christian McCaffrey is running the Wildcat for what, 2/3 of that game. That. Yeah. So smart move by the Buccaneers. I would not have applauded this move 2 years ago because it was not a Super Bowl ready team. Now it is, and you have backup options now with Bridgewater. So great move by Jason Light bringing him in.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess in the long term, we do agree on this. So luckily, this is what we have to talk about, the backup quarterback, because everything else is so good on his team.
That's good.
Here's another take I think we agree on, and I just have to talk about it again because I marvel at it. This training camp has showed me, and we could talk about all the new players all we want, but to me, the biggest surprise, I don't even know if it's a surprise. It's just like admitting I've never seen Mike Evans look better. And he's 31 years old. He's 31 freaking years old.
He'll be 32 in a week?
Yeah. And he looks faster. He looks better. He looks unstoppable. He's been good, obviously, but this is next level. You're almost 32 years old, bro. At what point do you slow down? He's been absolutely phenomenal. And if he stays healthy this year, I'm looking at 1,400 yards and 14 touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, he really
and Baker are so simpatico right now. They're unstoppable.
Yeah. And the other thing too is remember last year, Chris was getting force-fed the ball. I mean, part of this is it's a slot-driven offense, right? The passing game is slot-driven, not like Bruce Arians where it's vertical passes to Gronk and Godwin, but the more crossers, the underneath stuff, the yards after catch. This is a slot-driven offense. You go back to the Rams, Puka Nacua, before him, Cooper Kupp, right? So Chris Godwin is playing that type of role. But now no Godwin, and we saw Mike Evans in the slot more last year than we ever have because that's just a function of this offense. And remember, we were kind of like what Mike had prior to his injury, I think 303 yards, right, through the first 7 games. And we're like, Liam, what are you doing? It's great that Chris is off to this hot start, but man, it's come on, we need Mike to get 1,000 yards, right? And then he hurt the hamstring, and he had to go on this Herculean run, which he did. But I don't think this is going to be the case this year, JP. I think you're going to see Mike Evans get force-fed the ball because at the end of the day, I mean, he's worthy of it. He's having the best camp he's ever had, in my opinion. Honestly, he's the best player in terms of having a camp. He's had the best camp of any Buccaneer. I've yet to see him really have a bad day. If he drops a pass, it's a rarity. It's like he teleports. It's like he just teleports open. Like he has some mutant ability. The only player that can cover him really is Zion McCollum. And a perfect throw beats a perfect coverage, right? And we've seen Baker Mayfield throw the ball perfectly to Mike, where Mike catches the ball like this, and Zion's hand is like right here, but it's like an inch away, and it's like close but no cigar. He's had a phenomenal camp, and I expect if you have Mike Evans on your fantasy team, now keep in mind you are going to see a bunch of double coverages. You are going to see coverages roll to Mike, but Josh Grizzard saw what happened last year when Mike's in the slot. It's hard to double Mike in the slot.
Move him around. Move him around.
And I think you're going to see that a lot. And so I would expect Mike to put up some really big numbers to start the season. And of course, again, one-on-one down there at the 7-yard line, throw the ball to Mike at the fade, and he's going to score a touchdown. So I'm with you, brother. He's looked phenomenal. He really has. In my mind, this is not his last year in Tampa. I think he's on that Rondé Barber, Levante David role of, hey, you want to play another year? Great. We want you to play another year. We'll add another year to your deal.
Year. Yeah.
There's something in my mind because I don't think Mike wants to be that guy to hang on at like 35, 36, 37. I could be wrong. We'll see. I don't think Mike knows right now, but I don't think he wants to be that guy that becomes the possession receiver, the 700-yard guy, the 5 touchdowns, like Keyshawn Johnson was in the later parts of his year. To me, I think in year 12, if he gets 1,000 yards, he comes back for one more year. And then in year 13, because Mike's number is 13, if he has 13 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons, something tells me he might go out on top and just say, I'm done. No one's ever going to get 13 years.
That timing seems about right.
Because then he'll be 33 at that time. And that just seems like a good time for Mike, because I do think he wants to play in the Olympics.
It does, and he can't be, and you can't be on an active roster to play in the Olympics. We're thinking, I don't know. Well,
I think so.
Right. Yeah, I think it's something like that.
Right.
So from a fantasy, are you a fantasy guy? Do you fantasy football at all?
A little bit, but not. I just don't have time to keep up with the entire league.
I know. It's tough, but I do. Yeah. I play in this league with John Smoltz, and I know Smoltzy watches the show, so I shouldn't be revealing this, but I'm looking at Mike Evans and maybe the third or fourth round, and I think most, maybe even the second, because I get to keep Jamar Chase, which will be nice. So I start with him. Yeah. I know, and then if Ibuka's there, and if Ibuka's like average draft position, I think is like 110, 109. So he's like going in. Yeah. I mean, I'll take him in the 12-man league. I'll take him in the 6th or 7th round, because he's going to get the Godwin treatment early on. He's going to get 8 to 10 targets in the first.
No doubt.
Don't you think?
He's going to benefit from Mike being the only guy that's really double worthy, right? It's hard when you have Mike and Chris in the field, and Chris plays that ever important slot position. It's kind of pick your poison if you're a defensive coordinator. Which guy am I going to double? Because either one can kill me.
Right.
Chris can kill me. Chris can kill me with the first downs and moving the chains and then scoring, the touchdowns. Mike can kill me with the chunk plays and the red zone, right? So either one of them can kill you. Both are assassins. Emeka Ibuka is the assassin nobody knows about unless you're a Buccaneer fan. Because I may
end up with Mike, Ibuka, Bucky. I mean, I don't want to be a homer and Baker. I'll draft Baker. I did last year. He was tremendous.
I think ESPN has him at McMillan is still a fantasy steal.
He'll be available in like the 14th round.
Of course. And he's a guy that I think you could pencil in at least 5 touchdowns this year. And Chris Godwin's not going to play for the first 4 games. He's going to be on the PUP list to start.
Are we pretty sure about that, or are we still guessing?
It's August 13th. I mean, come on.
Come on. And he hasn't even
3 weeks away from the start of the season.
We haven't seen him run. Right? We haven't seen him run.
Much less practice. Step. Remember, back in 2022, after he signed his deal, he practiced on August 5th with a big, bulky leg knee brace. Okay. That was August 5th. That was 8 days ago. He was practicing on August 5th, 2022 with the big, bulky knee brace and was doing everything on August 5th except for team. He did individuals. He did one-on-ones, all that stuff. But we have not seen Chris even jogging, much less running, much less cutting on that surgically repaired ankle on a side field. So, I mean, we're running out of time. The math is not in his favor. And he's certainly not going to be ready for week 1. And if that's the case, you can't go into the season opener with 51 guys on your team. You can go in with 52. Tristan's going to be that guy who I think is going to dodge PUP.
Right. I agree.
I think he'll be on the roster, maybe not play for week 1, maybe not be ready for week 2, but he might be ready for week 3 or 4. And you have to give him the benefit of the doubt.
I agree.
Tristan Wirfs can sit there and suit up for you against the Jets and the Eagles, and you only miss him for 2 games. That's a win. That's a win. And you have to create that window of opportunity for him to be able to do that. He's walking around now. He essentially just carries a crutch. It's not even 2 crutches. He just carries a crutch around. There's no brace. There's no sleeve on that knee. So, but with Godwin,
and if a fight breaks out, he can use it as a weapon, as we saw.
That's right.
So
yeah, WWE style, absolutely. Yeah, there's no folding chairs out there in practice, but the cane will do the trick, right? So, but with Godwin, you can't carry him on to 53. I mean, you have to for a day. Both Tristan and Godwin will be on the 53 for a day. So when you see that, don't get too excited, Bucs fans, because the rule is, if you're going to put a player on the PUP list for the first 4 games where he's out, he doesn't count against the roster. He has to make the team first. Otherwise, if he goes, if they don't designate him to be on the active roster, then Chris is on season-ending injured reserve.
Right.
And they're going to have Chris back this year, just not in September. It's going to be more like October.
Yeah.
So having said that, both those guys will be on the 53 for the first 24 hours. Then they'll put the PUP designation on Chris. I'm hopeful, and I don't think they're going to put it on Tristan. They could, but I just think that, let's just say I've got an educated guess that I think Tristan's going to avoid PUP.
Yeah, I would agree with that. All right, partner, tell us what's coming up on Pewter Report this week, since you got the guys on the road. Remind everybody.
I got to get the week off from the podcast. So Wednesday and Thursday, today and tomorrow's shows will be at 4 o'clock today. Tomorrow's practice is later in the afternoon, so stay tuned for that time. Probably going to be a later podcast, maybe 6 o'clock. We'll see. Maybe 5 o'clock. But the boys will be up there in Pittsburgh, so you can check that out on Pewter Report TV, our YouTube channel. We've got a Pewter Pulse video on Nick Action Jackson going up later today. I really like this linebacker from Iowa, man.
Yeah.
That Saturday was not a fluke. He's been doing that kind of stuff in practice. Yep. He looks really good. He might be a sleeper to keep an eye on. We'll see how he fares on Saturday. You can follow all of the action. We have Payne Durham's Camp Diary, a new one up today on pewterreport.com. We have Elijah Roberts' Camp Diary going up tomorrow. Lots of great content on pewterreport.com. And you can follow us on social media, X, Facebook, and Instagram at Pewter Report.
All right, Scotty. Great stuff, my friend. Appreciate you as always. We'll see you soon.
Appreciate you, JP. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks. The great Scott Reynolds.